Hey, welcome everyone to the Prophecy Roundtable. Tonight, we have another interesting topic. All right, last week we talked about King Charles, and our guest was making the very affirmative case that he is, in fact, the Antichrist. And I will say this, it was a very interesting conversation. Um, I'm still going to just kind of withhold judgment on whether he's the Antichrist or not. Well, tonight we have another interesting topic, and I'm going to withhold judgment on this one as well. But it should prove to be a fun conversation. So our topic is Donald Trump the Antichrist? So far, I'm not quite convinced, but we have Maria Wold on to share her perspective with us. And just a little disclaimer, okay? So I'm not saying that he is, and Scott is not saying that he is. And I think we need to be very, very careful before we start to pin the tail on somebody. Okay. So we're gonna listen to what she has to say. We're gonna consider it. We're gonna push back a little bit here and there and say, wait a second. All right. But that's all part of the fun. Okay. And this is where we can come together as believers and we can share some of our ideas. All right. If you are somebody out there that has a very strong opinion for or against this topic, that's okay too. That is part of what we're doing here, is just raising some interesting topics. Okay. So, all those things, and taken in consideration, we will get started. And I'm looking forward to this conversation. So, Maria, we're glad that you could be with us.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, now something that we definitely share. I am not really a Donald Trump fan. And that's my opinion. That's my take on his personality and everything. I don't want to get into my voting record, but let's just say, 1 for, 1 against. And, what baffled me is that so many Christians really got behind this guy. Like he was the greatest thing ever, So while I may not be convinced that he's the Antichrist, there was this other extreme that he was God's gift to humanity. And, if he wasn't in the office, then it was going to be in hell on earth. And I'm like, wait a second, guys, something's not right here. And so, again, just, one more little caveat or disclaimer, whatever I need to say. I really want to encourage people out there. Don't focus on people or men or women, but on Jesus, on Yeshua. He is the only one that we should truly be voting for. And if we start saying that, well, this guy or that woman is God's person, watch out, right? Because God can raise up stones if he needs to, right? He can open the mouth of donkeys if he needs to. He doesn't need us, but he does choose to work through us. So to all the people that were so convinced that Donald Trump just had to be God's gift to humanity and who's practically the Messiah, they didn't always say that. Well, one guy did. But man, I really urge caution on this topic and on making idols out of people. It's never a good thing.
Well, I want to say that initially in 2016,
Scott had a thought.
Sorry. Just real quick, and I was going to turn it over to you. And to that point, Doug, to reiterate it, and just like Maria, we were talking off air, when Donald Trump first announced his candidacy, he was the last person that I would have ever wanted to win the Republican nomination. Now, I too believe we have more of a selection process than an election process, and there's a reason Donald Trump was the president in 2016. I think there's a reason he's not the president right now. But on that issue, there is this danger of putting too much faith in a party or into a man, and you did see that, and you still see that with a lot of people who are so convinced that only Donald Trump can save America. You do have, Maria's going to bring some of this out. You do have a lot of people, a lot of people in Israel, Jews, who, they did a temple coin with his image on it. He's got all this acclaim and fame over there too. So, I'm looking forward to, I've seen a lot of Maria's stuff, probably most of it on her blog. I'm still not convinced. She knows that. She knew that coming in. Full disclosure. she knows what the arguments I think that are, and I'm just going to use the term weak right now, but where they're strong. But I still, when we talked about Charles, I wanted to have her on and let her share what everything that she's going to make a very good case, by the way, everybody. So stick with us. But here's my point on this. It's Yeshua, Messiah, that's king and is sitting on the throne. Whether it's Charles, whether it's Trump, whether it's my understanding that the beast is up under the abyss and whatever, we don't need to really focus too much or worry any at all about who this entity that is going to do the abomination of desolation ultimately is. As a believer, we don't. I do think we need to warn, we need to educate, we need to let people know what is happening in the world. Just like last week with that ceremony. I mean, that was Baal worship 101. Some of the things Maria is going to point out might shock a lot of people, but ultimately the key here is the anti-Messiah, the beast. We don't have to worry about that individual from an eternity standpoint. Only Yeshua is sitting on the throne. Only Yeshua is going to judge us. But I will say these topics are interesting. They're fascinating. They're fun to discuss. And it's kind of fun to play a little bit of pin and tail on the Antichrist, but and it's interesting topics. So anyway, Doug, unless you have something else, I was going to turn it over to Maria and let her start rocking and rolling, and with limited studio interruptions.
Yes, indeed. Okay, go for it.
Thank you so much. So I wanted to say this, just so the people out there in the audience don't think, oh, well, she just always hated Trump to begin with, so of course she thinks he's the Antichrist. Well, no, it's not like that. Actually, yeah, when he was campaigning in 2016, I didn't like the way he treated Carly Fiorina. He was like insulting her face and saying, look at that face. And, and then he insulted Marco Rubio and said, look at those big ears. We didn't like the way he treated people. But then once he became president, he started to grow on me, and then I started really liking him, and I thought, well, okay, he's anti-vaccine, yay. Oh, I said the wrong word. Oh, sorry. I apologize for that. So I started really liking him and thinking, okay, well, yeah, I like the way he puts the media in their place. I like the way he, and then I started defending him. If anybody criticized him, I would be like, yeah, we know he's bold, he's brash, he's, rough around the edges, but, and I defended him. And then that's why I brought this up last week. For those that say, oh, you're not allowed to say that Yahuwah spoke to you. Well, our Messiah told us that if whatever he speaks to you in the ear, in secret, you are to shout it from the rooftops. Okay. So if you have a problem with me saying I heard from Yahuwah, well, every believer is supposed to hear from him. I mean, he said, my sheep hear my voice, and the voice of a stranger they will not follow, but will flee from him. So if it's that out of the ordinary for you, maybe you need to have a better prayer life, but every believer should be hearing his voice. Israel didn't want to hear his voice on Mount Sinai. Look what happened. He had to put it in stone. But yeah, I'm not going to apologize for saying I hear his voice, and I'm going to testify and say, I didn't get this on my own. I'm not the genius here. I'm not the one that thought of these revelations on my own. I take no credit. It's some of the revelations I'm like, I would have never thought of that. I know it didn't come from me because that was totally outside the realm of my thinking. That's why I give him credit. So if you have a problem with me saying Yahuwah told me, sorry, I'm not going to apologize, but that's, anyway. So the name of this blog is 14 Biblical Identifiers of the Little Horn. And I'm not going to read the whole blog word for word. I'm just going to go through all the bullet points and kind of skim over it as best I can, but try to still be thorough enough that it doesn't sound, innocuous. Anyway, so there are many Antichrist leaders on the world stage right now, and the word the article the is never seen in front of the term Antichrist in the New Testament scriptures. It's just, our Messiah said that there would be many false messiahs and false prophets. So that's why I refrain from saying the Antichrist, because there's many. But of course, the little horn, yes, I believe there's one little horn. But as far as using the term the Antichrist, I kind of, I don't like when people say that, because there's more than one Antichrist leader on the world stage right now. Okay. So this is, a graphic I made, 14 biblical identifiers of the little horn. And I'm just going to try to go through each bullet point. And as I said, there's not just one Antichrist. There's more than one. 1 John 2:18 says, little children, it is the last time. And as you've heard that anti-Mashiach shall come, even now are there many anti-Messiahs, whereby we know that it is the last time. Also in 1 John 2:22, who is a liar, but he that denies that Yahushua is the Mashiach, he is anti-Messiah that denies the Father and the Son. So he's not just describing an individual, he's describing a character trait of somebody who denies the Father and the Son. He says that that person is anti-Messiah. Okay. Same thing with, 1 John 4:3. He says, every spirit that confesses not that Yahushua Mashiach is come in the flesh is not of Elohim. And this is that spirit of anti-Mashiach, anti-Messiah, wherever you've heard that it should come. And even now already is it in the world. And then also in 2 John 1:7, for many deceivers are entered into the world who confess not that Yahushua Mashiach is come in the flesh. This is a deceiver and an anti-Messiah. Okay, so, there's many Antichrist leaders right now, I believe, on the world stage. And I believe that there's probably some competition between Trump and Charles. But as far as the criteria of the little horn, I'm going to step by step go through each criteria. And I believe that Trump is a better fit for the little horn. That doesn't mean that Charles isn't an Antichrist, because he probably is, an Antichrist leader. That doesn't mean he's the Antichrist, right? Obviously, there's going to be one individual probably who sits in the temple and declares himself to be Elohim. But along the way, there's probably going to be many Antichrists that are playing their roles, and I'll illustrate that as we get further into this. Okay, so even though Trump right now is in hot water and it's looking like his political career is dead, the Trump Corporation has been charged with 17 counts of, tax fraud. This is nothing new. He bounced back from 2 impeachments. In fact, the news media regularly calls him the Hydra, because what happens with the Hydra? You cut off one head, 2 grow back in its place. Something about Trump is that he, one of the things that Revelation 13:3 says that, all the world wandered after the beast, saying, who can make war with him? In other words, who's able to impeach him? Who's able to arrest him? Right? He always seems to get out of these things, and I believe he's probably going to get out of this, mess that he's in. And I'll go one step further. Not only do I think he'll probably, make a recovery, but Trump's been studying Kabbalah magic since the 1980s. He even said it in his book, The Way to the Top. He said that he has a Kabbalah teacher named Eitan Cohen. And so he's very astute in magic. And, people don't realize this. He's deeply into the occult. And so one of the things people in the Illuminati like to do is called a humiliation ritual. And this is what was done when Will Smith slapped Chris Rock across the face, when their career seems to be taking a somewhat of a dive. They do this thing called a humiliation ritual because it gets them media attention. Even if it's negative attention, they look at it like, hey, it's free PR. We're getting media attention, even if it's negative, right? But what happens when you hit rock bottom? There's no place to go but back up again. So in the occult world, they liken that to the phoenix who rises up out of the ashes, right? And right now, I think it's awfully interesting that the voter fraud controversy is taking place where? In Phoenix, Arizona. See, that's a clue in my book. That's a clue that the Illuminati are presiding over this whole election fraud thing. And it's even possible Trump might come back without an election. I think they've been sitting on that election fraud proof, and they're waiting for the most strategic time to bring it out. And it's going to shock the whole world. It's going to send shockwaves through the whole world.
Okay, let me just interject really quick right there.
Okay.
All right. I do not agree that there was any kind of election fraud. So you're welcome to hold that view.
Well,
That's
no.
not my view.
What I'm saying is
But-
that the election fraud was planned.
Okay.
Do you know what I'm saying? It wasn't real. It wasn't real election fraud.
She's not saying that, Doug. She's saying
Okay.
there's a selection process really in
Right.
America, which I tend to agree with her, as opposed to an actual legitimate
Okay.
election process.
Right.
So this is the whole world is a stage.
I know. I just don't want to go down this whole thing. Of,
No, she's not.
QAnon
Again,
and all that garbage.
understand
Just-
you're not hearing someone who's wanting to defend Trump.
All right. I know.
Yeah.
I'm just.
Yeah, I don't believe
Carry
it.
on.
Yeah.
Carry on. I'm just. keep
Hey,
listening.
Maria, careful with certain words. Just say they.
Okay. All right. So, the name Prince Charles of Wales did add up to 666 in gematria, Hebrew gematria. And, I've looked at Tim Cohen's, arguments, but now that he's King Charles of Wales, his name, that does not add up to 666 anymore. Now, well, he will say, oh, well, that just, it just needed to add up to 666 as Prince Charles of Wales as a identifier. But here's why I think it's important that the beast his name has to add up to 666 while he's functioning as the beast. Okay. Because I'm going to show you in Revelation 13 why that's so important, because it tells us plainly that the mark has a corresponding numerical value to the number of the name of the beast. So right here it says, and he causes all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads. Now, I just want to say this. Everybody thinks that this is literal as far as the right hand. It can be, but when you look up the word, it can be right side. It's not necessarily the right hand. It's the right hand side, like Messiah is seated at the right hand of the Father. And I'll talk more about that later, but the V, I'll just say V, snake bite, is supposed to send a computer chip to the right frontal lobe of the brain. And so it's the right side of the frontal lobe of the brain. And I'll explain that later. I have a graphic showing Department of Defense rolled that out in 2005 at the Pentagon, called the fundamental V. Okay. And that no man might buy or sell save he that had the mark or the name of the beast or the number of his name. Here's wisdom. Let him that has understanding count the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, and his number is 666. So the beast has to have the number of the mark that he's, giving to people at this, it's not like, oh, well, his name used to be 666, but now that his name's King Charles of Wales, it doesn't add up to 666 anymore. No, he has to hold that title that matches the numerical value of his name, that also matches the numerical value of the mark. So that's, to me, the fact that King Charles of Wales or King Charles III, I should say, no longer adds up to 666. That's huge for me. Okay. However, President Donald Trump indeed does add up to 666. Now, there's a website that I like to go to, and I know people try to ridicule this, but this is important to understand. Computer ASCII code is a language. And when it says to count the number of the beast, the word count there in the Greek means to compute. Now, it was possible to compute even in ancient times, but now we actually have a language called computer ASCII. Now, the reason I like this website, antichristcalculator.com, is because All the other websites only have like Greek gematria or English gematria. This one has 10 different methods. And I'm going to go there. It says factored by 6, factored by 1, Pythagorean, Chaldean, English, English method 2, Greek, Roman, ASCII uppercase, ASCII lowercase. So this is the most exhaustive website that I've ever found, right? So when I put in President Donald Trump, there you go. It's 666 in Roman. Now, why is Roman important? Because he went to the Vatican on March 24th, 2017, and had a face-to-face meeting with Pope Francis. Pope Francis presented him with the climate change encyclical, which is just another name for Depop. I'll just say it like that because I don't want to say the whole word. Because these global elites think that there's too many people on the planet, and the reason why, the planet's being destroyed is because of carbon emissions. So they're more willing to get rid of people for the sake of saving the planet. So Trump accepted the encyclical. He tweeted on Twitter and called Pope Francis His Holiness. Now, from what I know about the Jesuits, Pope Francis is the first pope that's ever been a Jesuit. President Trump attended Fordham University, which also was a Jesuit Bible college. So there's 2 Jesuits coming face to face. And so he's operating under the jurisdiction of the Roman papal beast. Remember, in 1871, the United States Congress sold America off to the Vatican City Bank and to the Bank of London, the Rothschilds. So ever since 1871, America has been a corporation, no longer, governed by we the people. So the fact that his name adds up to 666 in Roman is significant because he's functioning under the Holy Roman Empire that's being revived as we speak. But there's so many other things that add up to 666 that it's just crazy. Like, for instance, Trump is Antichrist, right? Watch this. 666. Wow. Tokenized and reduced. I've found so many terms. I've not found this many terms with one person's name embedded. I mean, it's just unbelievable. Trump is Satan. 666. Trump is serpent. Trump is serpent. 666. I mean, there's a long list, and I'll show that to you, but it's just unbelievable. I mean, it's just mind-boggling. I've never seen anybody whose name adds up to 666 in so many different ways. Okay, so Revelation 17:12 says that there's going to be 10 kings who will rule for 1 hour with the beast. Now, I can see Charles perhaps stepping into that role and being one of those 10 kings who will rule for 1 hour with the beast. So that's plausible. But I just have a problem with people saying the Antichrist because it implies that there's only one, and I believe there's more than one. But as far as the little horn, yes, I believe there's only one of those, one little horn. There's probably only one man of sin, the son of perdition. Now, there's rumors. I don't know if they're true or not, but it's certainly plausible. There's rumors that Charles may abdicate his role as king to his son, William, because his firstborn son is far more popular with the people of England than Charles because, he's Diana's son. So that's a possibility. Also, there's a woman named Dr. Joy Pugh who wrote a book years ago where she postulates that William is a clone from the Shroud of Turin. I don't know. I didn't really read the book, but I just skimmed some of her information.
That sounds crazy.
I know. That's what she, anyway, but it's possible that William could step in, but that still doesn't mean that he's the little horn. I believe it's possible that, that these people could fulfill some type of role. Like I said, one of the 10 kings that rules for 1 hour with the beast. So in my opinion, nobody fits the little horn better than Donald Trump. Now, Yahuwah never spoke to me and said, that Donald Trump is the Antichrist. However, I will say this. On March 21st, 2020, I was clueless about what was going on with the pandemic. I mean, I shouldn't say that word. Scammed. I'll say scamdemic. I was just not paying attention. And that morning, I'm just washing dishes, not even thinking about that. And out of the blue, it was like the Ruach said, go look up Revelation 6:2 and look up the word corona and then look up the word virus. And I was like, okay, I mean, like I said, it was just off my radar. I wasn't even thinking about it. So then when I did that, when I looked up the word corona and then, the word for virus in Latin, and I was stunned because it was like all of a sudden the blinders came off and my whole paradigm shifted on that date. I'll get back to that more, but the only reason I made a point of saying that the Ruach spoke to me about that is because it's not my opinion. Like I don't want people thinking, oh, she just doesn't like Trump, so she's got it out for him. No, it's not that. I actually started liking him. I actually thought he was funny. He made me laugh. I got a kick out of his, bold, brash behavior. It was comical. And then that day, my whole paradigm shifted. So anyway, I'm going to go through the bullet points now. Number 1, the word horn in Hebrew means trump or coronet. Here it is. I made a graphic. You can see it's number 7161, Karen. It means a horn, a cornet. And I decided to Google a cornet. This is what it looks like. It's a trump or a trumpet, a little trump. Okay. Little horn means little trump. Okay. That's a huge identifier in my opinion. Okay. Number 2, the beast or the little horn is admired and worshiped in the form of graven images, statues, words of adoration, songs of praise. And here's another graphic I made. You're going to see this guy from India who, built a shrine to Trump. He's kissing him, this is the CPAC event, March 2021. They made a golden image of Trump and people are, practically worshiping this image. Here's a Trump Buddha statue that is sold online. It's made in China. It's actually a Buddha statue with Trump's face on it. And I don't know if you guys can see it. It's kind of, small, but you can see a Chinese lady. She's painting the statue of the Buddha Trump doll. His image is on the coin. The people in Israel call him the Messiah. They call him the King of Israel. They even call him the second coming of God. I mean, it's way over the top and he revels in it. He doesn't say, oh, no, don't say that. He tweets about it. He brags about it, and scripture tells us that he speaks great things and blasphemies against the Most High. Now, there have been other leaders that have spoken blasphemous things, but nothing like the stuff that Trump has said. He brags about himself all the time, calling himself the chosen one. Okay. Even look, the Jerusalem Post, August 29, 2019, the King Messiah Trump. Can you believe that? The front page of the Jerusalem Post said the King Messiah Trump. People wearing t-shirts. I love Daddy Trump. Trump is my daddy. I mean, what did our Messiah say? Call no man upon the earth your father.
Hey, Maria, let me interject real quick. The part that okay. I always had an issue with Trump from the very get-go is when he was asked, I think he was a candidate, when he was asked if he had ever even asked for forgiveness. And he goes,
yes.
No, I just try not to sin. I try to do better. And all these Christians are elevating him to this great man of God. And he is such a proud narcissist.
Yeah.
I mean, he makes narcissists look like noodles. So, sort of like I said, Tim's dogmatism makes yours look noodlish. Well, Trump said he never had asked for forgiveness. I don't think he would even admit to have ever done anything wrong in his life or sin. So anyway, continue.
Yeah. And incidentally, now that you brought that up, I want to say part of that interview, he was saying how the great Norman Vincent Peale was his mentor and his pastor. And what people don't realize And I remember this very vividly. This was in 1985. I was flipping through the channels and, my kids were little, and I saw an interview on the Phil Donahue show with Norman Vincent Peale. And Norman Vincent Peale was openly saying, I've been a 33rd degree Mason for 60 years. My father was a 33rd degree Mason. My grandfather was a 33rd degree Mason. And Norman Vincent Peale was admitting that he helped Billy Graham get into Freemasonry. He said it on television, and so this is the guy that Trump constantly says he was such a great man. I mean, he was my mentor, he was my pastor. Even Politico published an article right after Trump became president that the name of the article was How Norman Vincent Peale Taught Trump to Worship Himself. Because, Norman Vincent Peale had that book, The Power of Positive Thinking. And it's all about, I remember in the interview, Phil Donahue said, well, you're supposed to believe that Jesus is the only way, the truth, and the life. And Norman Vincent Peale said, there's many paths to God. And he said, I found God at a Shinto shrine. That's what he said. Yeah. So it was like,
speaking of Billy, because I know you might get pushback, by the end of his life, he was saying there are many paths to God. 100%. I mean, I've listened to it come out of his mouth. Me and too. At least later on in life, he was the Christian. Buddhists can be good Christians. And obviously that's what the Pope is pushing these days as well.
One world religion. Exactly. Yep. And you have this image of Trump that was in Tuscany, Italy. It was a huge parade float where he's dressed like Caesar. He's got the leaves around his head. And there's all this occult imagery, like there's the phoenix on his chest. And, I mean, there's so many images. There's so many people around the world that literally worship Trump. It's unbelievable. In fact, this is going to blow your mind. There are churches right now that are baptizing people in the name of Donald Trump. This is no joke. I baptize you in the name of Donald Trump. I don't have time to go through all of these, but if you read my blog, all the links are there. Right now, here's another graphic I made. This is a billboard in Georgia, and it shows a picture of Trump, and it says, "Unto us a son is given, and the government shall be upon his shoulders." So they're quoting Isaiah 9:6 in regard to Trump. Another billboard in Missouri and Texas, and a picture of Trump, and it says, "The word became flesh," John 1:14. How blasphemous. And then it says, "Make the gospel great again." Now, I know that Tim Cohen uses the fact that Charles has a golden image of himself with wings as, I don't know, some kind of proof that he's the Antichrist. Look, this is an image you can buy on Amazon of King of Trumps. It's an idol of Trump with wings, with Lucifer wings, a crown on his head, and it's called King of Trump. So Charles is not the only one that has a golden Lucifer statue with wings. Okay. 60 Minutes, Second Coming. I saw a rally where Trump was at, and the guy announced him and said, "The second coming of Donald Trump." I'm like, oh my goodness. The blasphemy is just off the charts.
Hey, Maria, I'm really enjoying this. I want you to keep going. I just wanted to throw this in because I think this is great stuff. Maybe we shouldn't have asked the question whether he's the Antichrist, but whether there are a bunch of deluded Christians out there, or quote unquote Christians, because that's what has really shocked me to no end. I'm just like, look, guys, you like him, you don't, that's fine, and
right.
But the way that people are elevating him, right? So look, I don't think that when it all is said and done, that he's going to be the guy that's going to go into the temple and say, "I'm God," all that. Right. I
think he's a strong candidate for that.
Well,
I do.
And that's your opinion. I'm not challenging your opinion. I'm just saying my opinion is I don't think that's going to happen. But what I do think is atrocious is all these otherwise decent Christians who have elevated him, and you're showing us the proof right here. Right. And I've seen some of these things as well of just people gone off the deep end, delusional.
Yes,
And somebody says
exactly.
this is blasphemy. Absolutely, I agree. This is absolutely
There's a few
blasphemy.
Trump sniffers in chat right now, and I'm saying Trump sniffers for that reason. And yes, I'm actually being kind of rude to you right now. If you think Trump is going to save America, or you think Trump is this great man, you're at best you're deceived, you're deluded. You don't. I mean, it's okay to be ignorant, but to stay ignorant is stupid. So
Yeah, the kingdoms
Go
of
on.
this world are going away. The big stone, the huge stone that's going to strike the iron and the clay feet is about to destroy the kingdoms of this world. And it tells us in scripture, the kingdoms of this world have become the kingdoms of our Messiah. And so why are we trying to save this, Freemasonic government? Why? No, I'm looking forward to the millennial kingdom. We should be, what does it say in the book of Revelation? We should be saying, it says, in the spirit and the bride say, come, Yahushua. Shouldn't we be crying out from the depths of our being, come, Yahushua? And shouldn't we be going out and preaching the gospel of the kingdom so that he will come? Instead of saying, like Lot's wife, oh, I want to hold on to the things of this world. I want to hang on to this country. I want to hang on to all the materialism. No, this is passing away. Stop trying to hold on to this country. I mean, I do love this country. Don't get me wrong. But the prophecies of Daniel indicate that even America is going to fall. It's going to go away. It's not going to be, we're not going to have a democracy in the new millennium. It's going to be, a monarchy with Yahushua as the king. So look to the future. Quit looking back like Lot's wife. Okay. Trump Heights is a 24-hour prayer, a house of prayer at this place, and they named it Trump Heights. Okay. There's a book by this guy, Helgard Muller. It says President Donald J. Trump, the Son of Man, the Christ. It's sold on Amazon. It's unbelievable. People have lost their marbles. Number 3, the little horn speaks great things and blasphemies against the Most High. Daniel 7:8, Revelation 13:5. Now, this was on August 21st, 2019. This was the same day that the whole Russian collusion was finally over. And, there was a press conference and Trump said, I am the chosen one. Of course, he was saying that in regards to China. And at the time I defended him. But now looking back in retrospect, knowing the things I know today, I'm like, wow, he was speaking in code. He wasn't just saying I'm the chosen one when it comes to China. There's reasons I say this because I happen to know about his royal bloodline, and we'll get to that. So this was the same day he tweeted, thank you to Wayne Allen Root for the nice words. President Trump is the greatest president for Jews and for Israel in the history of the world, not just America. He's the best president for Israel in the history of the world, and the Jewish people in Israel love him. He's the king of Israel. They love him like he is the second coming of God. I mean, now some people would say, but those weren't his words. Yeah, but he's bragging on it. Like if he was a decent guy, he would have said, oh, no. Don't elevate me. Don't put me on a pedestal like that. No, he's bragging on it. He's repeating it. Yeah. Now, this is a graphic I made because I watched the film called Megamind. It came out on the 2010, and it was November the 5th. And that's a key date because, in 1605, the Jesuits planted 16 barrels of gunpowder in King James Parliament, intending to assassinate him because they wanted him to use the Latin Vulgate Bible, and he refused. And so, this movie came out on the very same date, November the 5th, 2010. And incidentally, that same year is when the Rockefellers rolled out this plan, which came to pass, the scamdemic later on, in 2020. So here's a scene in the film where Megamind is he shapeshifts into Marlon Brando from the Godfather movie, and he injected Hal with this DNA altering substance, and he says, "I'm your father. I am like your space dad." He's got his hands out like this, and then here you have April 29th, 2021, and it says Trump's latest delusion. I'm the father of the V. And he's holding his hands out the same way. And it's like, you can't make this stuff up. Everything is scripted. There's so much predictive programming. And this was 10 years before, it's just crazy. Okay, number 4, the little horn is more stout, or he has a look that is more stout than his fellows, according to Daniel 7:20. So here's another graphic. Daniel 8:23 says, and in the latter time of their kingdom, when the transgressors are come to the full, a king of fierce countenance and understanding dark sentences shall stand up. Now, the word fierce in Hebrew is az. It means harsh, greedy, and rough. Daniel 7:20 says, the little horn has a mouth that speaks very great things, and his look is more stout than his fellows. So let's look at that word stout. What does it mean? Okay. It's the Hebrew word rab, and it means huge, great, domineering in character. One of Trump's famous words is huge. It's going to be huge, and great. He says great and huge all the time. But the dictionary defines the word stout as heavy built, bulky in figure, corpulent, thick set, fat, bold, brave, dauntless, stubborn, resolute, forceful, vigorous, domineering, a bully, a tyrant, obstinate, fierce, arrogant, prideful, stately, to strut, to shine, to boast.
Is there a picture of Donald Trump after that definition?
This doesn't fit. I'm not saying that King Charles isn't proud or boastful. He probably is a tiny bit, but compared to Trump, he's got everybody beat. Okay. There's nobody that fits this stout description as much as Trump. I'm sorry. It just nobody does. Okay. Number 5, the man of sin causes all people everywhere to violate the Mosaic law, the Torah. Okay. Daniel 7:23 through 25, 2 Thessalonians 2:7. Here's another graphic I made. And what I do with this graphic is I compare Trump to 2 previous Antichrist leaders. And I'm not going to say the word, but I wrote, the V is an abomination to the human temple. Here it says the first abomination of desolation is Antiochus Epiphanes the 4th, 167 BC. He erected an image of Zeus and offered up unclean animals, pigs. His image was on the temple coin. Now you have second abomination of desolation, Nero Caesar. They erected images of Nero Caesar, who also claimed to be a reincarnation of the sun god on December 25th. And they offered up unclean animals, sacrifices of pigs, and so forth. And Nero's image was on the coin. Now, fast forward to December 25th, 2020. That was when they rolled out the V. And what do you have? Sorry, I almost said it.
It's the not a V. It's the not a V.
I know. But if I say not a V, some people might go, "What the heck is she talking about?" So, anyway, so look at what it has in it. It has aborted, bambinos, DNA from pig, rabbit, horse, dog, unclean. Okay, and what when he rolled this out, it was actually on the winter solstice 2021. And that date's important for a reason. I'll explain why that date's important. But he called it a great Christmas miracle. You see the pattern? December 25th here. Nero Caesar claimed to be the reincarnation of Jupiter. Zeus is the Greek name, but Jupiter is the Roman name for the same god, the same deity, right? And so there's the pattern with Christmas and December 25th. Leviticus 11:4 through 47. tells us, you shall not eat rabbit, mouse, swine, horse, dog, human, cadaver, carcasses of dead humans, on and on. The name Epiphanes means God manifest in Greek. It adds up to 666. So Antiochus gave himself the title Epiphania, which means, he was saying, I'm the manifestation of God, is what he was saying. That title adds up to 666. Nero Caesar, his name in Roman numerals and also in Hebrew, adds up to 666. President Donald Trump, 666. The V word, 666. Now, I believe there's going to be another abomination of desolation with a literal temple, which is going to be built by Trump because they've already slated him to build it. And his image is on the coin. Okay, so you see the pattern. You can't ignore the pattern. And then let's see here. Now, in 2020, Trump gave the illusion that he was defunding Planned Parenthood. But what did he do? Only 2 weeks later, he donated $1.16 billion. Oh, that website's no longer. Okay. Oh, geez. I got to go back. I got to go back to the blog because I kind of jumped out of it. So, but he donated $1.16 billion to this organization called Gavi, which guess who runs it? Bill Gates and the WHO. So it's like he gave the illusion. Everybody thought he defunded, Planned Parenthood. But what did he do? He turned right around and gave that $1.16 billion to that organization when nobody was paying attention. It's called bait and switch. It's like sleight of hand magic. You make it look like, oh, he's doing so many great things for the country. But when nobody's paying attention, he does this, this sleight of hand magic.
Hey, Maria, do you have the graphic of the WHO logo in this blog? Where it has the Stephanos, the crown surrounding the serpent on the pole.
I have it somewhere on my computer. I just don't remember what I named it.
Okay. Well, it's the Stephanos, the ancient, just for the audience real quick on this issue. And the only reason I bring it up, it's not so much about Trump, but it's about what we've had a show on this before, but it's what I believe was and is the first seal, which would be the scandemic, the man created gain of function, CV19 thingy, and the so-called remedy. I'm still, again, I'm not dogmatic. I don't teach it. By golly, it is, but I still believe it is from the toxone. The Greek word for bow is toxone.
Well, and that was
the crown. And on the WHO logo, you've got a crown surrounding a serpent on a pole, and they're the ones promulgating this. So, and definitely sort of to what Tim was arguing last week, Chucky having his little sticky fingers in all this.
Chucky.
There's no doubt that the Trumpster has also had his sticky little fingers in all this too. So,
right. So
anyway, back to you.
Some people objected to me saying that Yahuwah spoke to me, but sorry, that's what happened. I mean, like I said, March 21st, 2020, I wasn't even aware of what was going on with the scamdemic. And then out of the blue, he says, go look up this scripture. And when I read it, and I've always read this thinking that the rider on the white horse would be a pope. I mean, I always thought it would be. But when I was reading it, it was like the Ruach said, that's Trump. And I'm like, oh, wow. And so he's given a bow. And when I looked up the word bow, this is the etymology. It's the word toxon, which was borrowed into the Latin toxin. And it says from this came the Greek toxicon, meaning a poison in which arrows are dipped. And so then I knew at that moment, I was like, oh, he's going to be the one to develop the V. I knew he was going to. And then I didn't even know this, but this was a parade, float that they made of Trump on a white horse in Virginia before he even became POTUS. So that was very telling, and, but So here's the other bullet point. The little horn subdues 3 kings. Now, I know you think this is weak, Doug. I mean, Scott. But here's the thing. In Zechariah chapter 1, it talks about the 4 horns that have scattered Israel, Jerusalem, and Judah, right? Well, those 4 horns were the first 4 empires in history: Egypt, Assyria, Babylon, and Medo-Persia. Well, guess what? The Abraham Accords was with those same territories, okay? Those same exact territories. And, the first 3 nations that signed it was Bahrain, Israel, and United Arab Emirates. But 2 months later, Egypt signed it, Morocco, Sudan, and Jordan. And this, and I'll explain why this is so important. Also, the little horn destroys many by peace. Well, we know there's a clause in the Accords that states that every citizen of these countries cooperate with the poison. Okay. And here's the coin. The coin shows, syringes, satellite surveillance, the planet Saturn, the dove with the olive branch in his beak, the Islamic scimitar, circuit boards, right? So I believe that was, he subdued 3 kings, 3 kingdoms with this accord. And it says right here that 4 beasts came up from the sea, diverse one from the other. That's in Daniel 7:3. In verse 4, he sees the first one like a lion, and it had eagle's wings that were plucked and lifted up from the earth and made to stand upon the feet as a man, and a man's heart was given to it. So, the lion in ancient times was the Babylonian Empire, but in modern times, it's Great Britain. The 2 eagle's wings on the lion represent America and its 2-party system. Well, guess what? Those 2 eagle's wings were plucked from the lion after the Revolutionary War. So even though in ancient times, the lion with the 2 eagle's wings was, Babylon, or it was just a lion, right? But in the future, it's a lion with 2 eagle's wings.
Yeah, and Maria, we've had a show on that before, Maria, where I think it was you and I, Doug. We took the position that the Daniel 7 beasts were like a yet future beast kingdoms. I forget who took the position. They were taking the old the party line thing, trying to fit the image back into Babylon, but the Daniel received this vision after Babylon had already been conquered.
Exactly.
And so people are trying to fit a square peg in a round hole. So anyway, continue.
So who are the 3 plucked horns? Well, originally the 3 horns were the Roman colonies, which survived the fall of Rome. And then history does repeat itself, right? Nazi Germany became the leopard, just like Greece under Alexander the Great. After Alexander died, his kingdom was divided into 4 parts by his 4 generals. Now, what's fascinating about this is, and I just found this out a couple nights ago when I was doing some research, Nazi Germany, after World War II, after Nazi Germany lost the war and Hitler died, or supposedly he died. They say some people think he survived and went to South America, but the division of Germany and Berlin was divided into 4 occupational zones, which were controlled by the United States, Great Britain, France, and the Soviet Union. So you see that pattern. It's just like with Alexander the Great, the leopard, who, after he died, his 4 generals divided up his territory, his conquered territory. The same thing happened after World War II. And then the Yalta Agreement in 1945, that established the United States as the superpower. In 1945, America became a world superpower. Okay. And the reason that's important is because altogether we have 8 kings. In Revelation 17, it talks about 8 kings. Now, when you look up that word kings, it's basileus, which means a base of power. So it can mean a literal king, as in popes or whatever, but it can also mean kingdoms. So you have Egypt, Assyria, Babylon, Medo-Persia, Greece, Rome, Great Britain, and America is the 8th king. I believe America is going to be a revived Holy Roman Empire. And, you know, a lot of the Nazi war criminals were sent here to America and were granted asylum. How many of you remember there was a TV show called The Man in the High Castle? And Gary and I watched it a couple years ago, and we were like, wow, this is totally like predictive programming. You know, I mean, I could tell that that's what they were, you know, intimating, is that America could become another Nazi Germany. And, you know, I've been suspecting that for, you know, for a few years now, that I believe that Trump could very well be another Hitler, you know, if he suspends the Constitution and becomes a dictator, you know, because that's exactly what Hitler did. First, he made Germany great again. He starts out as a nationalist, makes Germany great again. The people, even the German Christians, had pictures of Hitler on their walls, you know, took down the picture of Jesus, put up a picture of Hitler. Same thing happening all over again.
And Maria, again, I'm not saying it's Trump, but I do see that what could happen, and part of what the game that might be being played is they're showing their cards about just how evil this world is, how evil this satanic cabal system is, and how there could be an uprising of Christian nationalism aligning with others that actually believe in morals and teach morals. Because your average American, whether they're a lukewarm Christian, a Mormon, a Jehovah's Witness, a Muslim for that matter, even just the guy on the street that hadn't set foot in a church in forever, they're against this evil. And I think that this deception, whether it be Trump or somewhere else, the deception is going to look real good at first, and people are going to get on board only to then, just like you just said, Germany, if people think they can't be deceived again, that's my concern, and not so much for Trump, if you will, but my concern could be a backlash in which God is mentioned, but then the next thing you know, we're living in a police state. That's my concern.
Yeah, well, like what I was starting to say was that Hitler started out as a nationalist. It was all about making Germany great. But then what? He started conquering. He occupied 10 European nations, the 10 horns on the beast. So just because he started out as a nationalist, he ends up becoming a globalist, you know, and I think the same pattern is going to happen with Trump. Now, here's the bullet point number 8. The he-goat comes from the west and on the face of the whole earth, and has a notable horn between his eyes. That's Daniel 8:5. Now, this is really interesting. Guess what the word notable means in Hebrew? It means a compact or an agreement. Now, listen to this. It says, and out of one of them came forth a little horn, which waxed exceeding great toward the south and toward the east and toward the pleasant land. Well, the pleasant land is Israel, right? Trump is a repeat of Alexander the Great, who defeated Media and Persia in the days of the Grecian Empire. However, in our modern time, Trump is the one who came from the west to the pleasant land, Israel, and has made a significant impact on the Middle East since 2016. But rather than defeat or subdue the Middle East with a military strike, Trump did it with a peace agreement called the Abraham Accords. Now, to think about this, Trump defeated the Islamic Caliphate. He ordered the killing of Soleimani, right? He's, you know, what Media and Persia are Iran, Iraq, and Syria. He made a significant strike against ISIS. And I have an article about that in one of my blogs, but I don't want to move around at this juncture because I don't want to get off track. So Trump has made a significant impact. It's the first thing is he established Jerusalem as the capital city of Israel. He moved the United States embassy there. Trump and Putin are both slated to build the temple. It says right here, November 10th, 2016, been exclusive. Sanhedrin asks Putin and Trump to build third temple in Jerusalem. I believe that's still going to happen. I mean, they're building the train station that's going to be named after Donald Trump. It's supposed to be up by this coming spring of 2023. And it starts with the Ben Gurion Airport, and it shuttles the tourists straight to the Temple Mount. Trump was instrumental in distributing the poisonous bow and arrows to the entire world, thus destroying many by peace, with a peace agreement. Let's see. Of course, we know that his image is on the temple coin. There's a song, these Israeli choir boys sing it. It's called Super Trump. And when you hear the lyrics, you just would be, your mind would be blown. They're like, Super Trump, and they're saying hallelujah, and they're singing hallelujah to him. Did you know there's 147 places on earth named after Donald Trump? 147 places, gambling casinos, vineyards, golf courses, hotels, restaurants, products, streets, highways, avenues, squares. In fact, on Wikipedia, there's a list of things named after Donald Trump. He is so well marketed. His name is a household name, So the he-goat with the notable horn breaks the two horns of the ram, which is Iran and Syria. Now, like I said, that's the, Islamic Caliphate. And when he had Soleimani killed and he defeated ISIS, that's the he-goat from the West. I see it. I know you think it's weak, but I think it's pretty strong evidence, in my opinion. So I made this graphic, yin and the yang, the principle of the light and the dark, the black and white checkerboard floors in Freemasonry. The yin would be like the Democratic Party, the dark side, the yang is the Republican Party. It kind of pretends to be more the conservative Christian side. So it's the light side of Luciferianism. That's what the Republican Party is doing. It's embracing the one world religion. I mean, people don't realize Trump actually signed a executive order that this was on June 3rd, 2020. It was the same day that he went and he dedicated that statue of Pope John Paul. And he and his wife Melania actually knelt down and prayed to the statue of Pope John Paul. And that it's this agreement called the it's an executive order interreligious religious Trump, something like that. Anyway, basically, in a nutshell, what this executive order does is it makes it illegal for anybody to speak out against the one world religion. So eventually people will be killed for speaking out against the one world religion. And Trump signed an executive order to ensure that people won't be allowed to speak out against the one world religion. Okay. But see, this kind of stuff goes under the radar. Nobody notices it. Yeah, it's going to be considered hate speech, like Gary's saying here in the background. So the little horn has a fierce countenance. That's bullet point number 10. Fierce countenance and understanding dark sentences. Now, this term, understanding dark sentences, is the Hebrew word kidah. It means a puzzle, a riddle. The QAnon people say that Trump speaks in code. We all heard him recite the poem about the woman and the snake. Now, of course, at the time, we thought it was about immigration. But after 2020, I realized, he was telling us he's the snake and he was going to give the woman a deadly bite. See, this is what the Illuminati do. They tell you in plain sight what they're going to do because they believe in the law of reciprocity. Like if they don't tell you, then your blood's on their hands. But if they tell you and it goes over your head, then it's like, well, we tried to tell you. It's not our fault that you're stupid and you didn't get it. Like that's why they do these things in plain sight. Yeah, and it's part of Kabbalah magic. It's like they get power from doing that. Now, this is the book, Trump's book, The Way to the Top, page 188. He talks about his Kabbalah teacher, Eitan Yardeni. And in fact, Marina Abramovich, the spirit cooking witch, she was interviewed and they asked her what she thought of Trump. And she says that she spoke with the shamans and she said that they believe that Trump is playing the role of the magician in the tarot cards. Now, this is what it says about the magician: creator, skills, knowledge, free will, intention, information, abilities, creativity, willpower, intelligence, on and on, but also manipulative, a fraud, illusionist, con man, fake, charlatan, trickster, liar, machinator, abuse of power. That's all him, you know? So this is number 11. The little horn honors Apollo in his estate, Daniel 11:38, and also Revelation 9:11. Now, here's a Freemasonic temple. It's an artist depiction of a Freemasonic temple. You see the pillars and you see the mural of Apollo on the ceiling. Trump designed his Trump Tower to look exactly like that. He's got all the pillars of Boaz. What do they call those? The pillars of Boaz. And then he's got the image of Apollo. Yeah, the pillars always appear in pairs. So Trump's estate on Fifth Avenue features a massive painting of Apollo, and in Hebrew it's a bad dawn. I don't think that's a coincidence. It's a bad dawn. I mean, you just can't make this stuff up. Okay. Yeah, and bullet point number 12, the man of sin, aka the beast, performs lying signs and wonders, and he's healed from a deadly wound. Now, that word wound in the Greek is plague. Remember in October 2020 when Trump got sick with he and his whole family got sick with the CV, right? And he recovered from it. Okay, he recovered from a deadly plague. But what was the lying sign and wonder? He called the V that only his administration could do it. He's bragging. Nobody said it. Everybody said it couldn't be done, but we have done it. He called it a great Christmas miracle. There's a lying sign and wonder right there. Okay, lying sign and wonder. Now, he tweeted this.
Maria, who would his false prophet be? Or is he the false prophet?
I think that Pope Francis probably is. He's a strong candidate for the false prophet.
That's still my number one candidate for the second beast. And even if this one kicks the can before the end, whoever takes his place is still that's always going to be my number one candidate until proven otherwise.
Yeah. So in October 5th, 2020, he tweeted this, but then it got taken down. But his son, Trump Jr., wrote this. He says, imagine this: Trump gets all better and donates his plasma to develop a corona treatment. And then all the liberals have to get the V with Trump's blood. And then he says, OMG, he needs to go donate now. Now, this is really funny because Tom Hanks and his wife, Rita, were the first ones to go and donate their plasma. And, remember they were in Australia being quarantined at the time. Well, he was one of the lead actors in the Da Vinci Code. And if you know anything about the Da Vinci Code, the whole movie is about this cult called the Rosicrucians. And the Rosicrucians believe that Jesus and Mary Magdalene got married, and their children, they have all these children, and all their descendants are what they call the Merovingians. They're this, royal bloodline. Well, Trump's family claims to be from the Merovingian bloodline. They believe they are direct descendants of Jesus and Mary Magdalene, and that's why they believe that he qualifies to build the temple. Okay. And this is really fascinating, but most people don't realize this, but that the word Holy Grail, we think it's the cup that Yahushua drank from at the quote unquote Last Supper. That's in the occult world. The Holy Grail is supposed to be the womb. of Mary Magdalene. Now, one of the things you always see Trump doing this with his hand, he sits like this with his hand, does the upside down triangle. Well, in the movie, the Da Vinci Code, Tom Hanks explains when you do the triangle, or this way, it's the male energy, and when you do it this way, it's the womb. It's the inverted triangles, the womb. Okay. Trump is constantly doing the womb because here's why. His mother's name is Mary MacLeod, right? She was Scottish Jew. Even Yardavidi, the guy who researches where all the 12 tribes went, he confirms that Trump's mother, Mary MacLeod, it's spelled like McLeod, but it's pronounced MacLeod. She's a Scottish Jew. And there's actually a painting of her now. And Trump was born on a total lunar eclipse, full blood red moon. There's a painting that this Jesuit artist did, and it's a picture of her pregnant with Trump, and then there's a full moon. And so what they do is they superimpose the image in this movie, the Da Vinci Code. They show the image of the Mona Lisa, and when you superimpose the image of Trump's mother's face over the Mona Lisa, they look alike. And there's a whole thing to that. It's too much to get into, but they've been hinting and telling us Trump is he's the one from the Holy Grail. He's the chosen one. He's the one that the Illuminati have chosen to build the temple. Okay, here's the 13th bullet point. The second beast, aka the little horn, makes fire come down from heaven in the sight of men. Now, that could be Space Force. His Space Force is conducting surveillance on people.
Do you have the logo, and when you turn it upside down, it's a Baphomet?
Yeah, I'll get that real quick. Hang on, let me find it. Yep.
Guys, and if whether you're watching live, we got like 140 people watching live. A lot of people that watch the show are already on to the symbolism and everything. But if you're watching in the future, they're hiding all this stuff like literally in plain sight. And if Maria can pull up the United States symbol for Space Force, and you turn it upside down, it's 100%, no doubt, by golly, occultic, just like the dollar bill.
Yep. Exactly. I mean, you turn the hat upside down, it's Baphomet. Even the stars he's got the star on the forehead. It's the star right here. I read, and this is true. I mean, there's actually a guild that was started by Robert Zemeckis, Bob Gale, Steven Spielberg, and George Lucas, the one who did the Star Wars trilogy. They're all Zionists. Now, I'm not one of these people that says all the Jews in Israel are Zionists. No, in fact, most of the Orthodox Jews in Israel are against Zionism. They are against political Zionism. So please, whatever you do, do not peg all Jews in Israel as Zionists. Zionism is actually a phrase that was coined by the Jesuits in the 1500s. And what that is Zionism is basically this push to build the temple so that they could seat their false Messiah there. That's
okay.
Really what.
Let me jump in really quick here, because that's not accurate.
Is that not what the Orthodox Jews want to do? Is have a temple?
Well, yeah, but Zionism.
But
wait a second, Scott. Zionism was really grown out of a lot of secular Jews who were not that excited about the rabbis' intention of just waiting around for Messiah. They wanted to get back sort of on their own terms, but they didn't really care about building a temple. So I just want to be very careful, because I'm very, very sensitive to
and Maria,
things Jewish. One second. So I'm very sensitive to that. I know that a lot of these terms can get thrown around really easily, and sometimes we don't define our terms very well. So, let's just be careful, because
that's
I love
what I'm
the
doing.
Jewish people. I love Israel. I love the Jewish people.
Real quick, Maria, before you jump in, Maria, correct me if I'm wrong, but here's what it is. At the upper level of whether you want to call it Kabbalah or mystic Judaism or the powers that be, the elites that really know who they worship. There's no difference between Jews, Christians, and Muslims and those and true Luciferians. And when I say that, what I'm talking about at the upper level of Catholicism, they know who they worship. At the upper level of Islam, they know who they worship. At the upper level of Judaism, they know who they worship. All these religions, if you will, at the upper levels are Luciferians. And so what Maria is not lumping the 99.99% of those who are ignorant or don't know or are not part of this, but there actually is a lot of truth to this. And a lot of the nonsense that Kanye is pushing is he's trying to lump all the Jews, to your concern, Doug, he's trying to lump all the Jews and call them fake Jews and make every Jew somebody that wants to rule the world and everybody else is a dog. And what's going to happen is as more and more people actually learn the truth that they are Israel, we even see this right now. And Doug, I want to do a show on this one day. You see a lot of people who see a lot of truth. And now you've got the African only Israelites, only the Africans are the true Jews, only the Africans are Hebrews. And yeah, you Gentiles can come in. They're not even cultish like the Black Hebrew Israelites. But at the same point in time, when we defend what we know to be true at this upper level, if you will, then we're not doing a service. But as Doug pointed out, you don't want to lump the 99.99%.
Well, that's exactly what I was saying. I was saying that most Orthodox Jews are against Zionism, political Zionism. Okay, there's biblical Zionism, which, you know, Yahuwah says he's zealous over Zion, right? And there's the, you know, but then there's the political Zionism, which, you know, the Illuminati are just trying to, you know, build this temple so they can, you know, they're trying to hasten things so they can, you know, seat their false Messiah there. You know, they're not willing to wait for the real Messiah to come, you know, from heaven. But the Orthodox Jews are willing to wait for the Messiah to come from heaven. So I'm actually saying the opposite of what you think I'm saying. I'm saying the Orthodox Jews, most of them are against Zionism. You know, it's the Illuminati that are into Zionism, political Zionism.
Let's just leave the word out because it's complicated. But I hear you.
I
So
understand.
keep going. Yeah,
I just want people to know where I'm at. You know,
I know. But I mean, I've met some really dear people who would call themselves Zionists.
Right. I know what you mean.
So I mean, you know, I had a relative who was one of the very, very early Zionists, and she loved God. She was a great person. She wasn't doing weird stuff. You know, so I just want to be sensitive to that. That's all. So, you know, sometimes these terms get used in weird ways, and sometimes with conspiracy stuff, you know, it can get all turned around. So,
right.
That's all.
Well, the only reason I brought it up is because these guys, Steven Spielberg, Robert Zemeckis, Bob Gale, and George Lucas started a guild called the Zionist Cinema Hollywood Project, or the Hollywood Cinema Zionist Project. And they put a whole bunch of predictive programming into the Back to the Future movies about Trump and about 9/11. And they use film to let the global elites know what they're planning to do. So anyway, you know, I don't know why.
Do you have that about I forget his name, Needles, and then you're fired?
Yes, I have it. Yes, I have that. Yeah, I have the blog. I wrote about it. It's so amazing how many things are in the Back to the Future movie about Trump. Yeah.
Show that one real quick.
Yeah, I will. So here, Bob Gale was interviewed and he admitted that they created the character Biff Tannen to be Trump. And in the movie, Biff Tannen becomes a, you know, millionaire and builds a gambling casino, you know. And then there's another scene in the movie. I'll show it to you. This is where Marty goes into the future and he, you know, to 2015. And he takes a phone call in his office and he's, you know, talking to this guy over a television screen, and the guy's name is Douglas J. Needles. Douglas J. You know, like Donald J. Right? Well, then I kept seeing the number 88 because, you know, the DeLorean time machine car had to go up to 88 miles per hour before it could go into a different time continuum. But so I saw the number 88 again, and I'm like, oh, that's funny. So then I decided to Google, what does Oriole mean in the occult world? Come to find out, there's a Scottish Rite Freemasonic chapter on Fifth Avenue, right next door to the Trump Tower. What do you think they're telling us? Douglas J. Needles? Well, there was a reality show that Trump was in called where he would always say, "You're fired." It was called The Apprentice. Come to find out, there's a book written called The Apprentice, and it's all about becoming a Freemason. So in the movie, Marty does this transaction with this guy, Douglas J. Needles, and right after he does it, his boss, who's Chinese, calls Marty and says, "You're fired." And this long sheet of paper spits out of the fax machine, and it says, "You're fired, you're fired, you're fired." And I'm like, oh my goodness. It's like they were just telling us, everything that they were planning to do, So the 14th bullet point is the second beast, aka the little horn, causes the people of the world to take a mark that equals the same value as the number of his name. I know you guys don't believe that the Na'vi is the mark. I believe it is, but that's okay.
Because I'm still buying and selling.
I understand, but there's passports all over the world. People can't fly without one of those. So it's a slow rollout, a very slow rollout. But I mean, look at all the things, President Donald Trump, 666, Trump is Antichrist, Trump is Nimrod, Trump is reptile, Trump is serpent, Trump is devil, Trump is he-goat, Trump from hell. It's crazy how many things add up to 666 with his name in it. I mean, there's more. Look, Mark of the Beast, Prince Charles of Wales, George Mario, which is the first and middle name of Pope Francis. His last name, Bergoglio, also adds up to 666. William Henry Gates adds up to 666. Dr. Anthony Fauci, Elon Reeve Musk, Hillary Diane Clinton. There's a lot of things that are related to what's going on right now in our current world situation. Pope John Paul's name in Latin, Jonas Paulus Secundo, 666.
So I just ran Donald J. Trump, and it doesn't equal 666. So what do we make of that?
Well, because you have to use the title that person is functioning in, right?
And right now
who said we have to? Where'd you get that?
Well, because the beast functions in whatever office he's in, right? Like if he's a king or if he's a president or whatever he is. But that's just something go ahead.
But who says that we have to use the word president?
Yeah, what he's asking you is where in scripture you are getting that you have to use someone's title. Like I'm Michael Scott Harwell. Right. I have a JD. You could add to it. You could add, I guess, Esquire. You could play with my name. You could do M. Scott, or you could do Michael S.
Right.
You could do chicken farmer extraordinaire Harwell. I mean,
yeah. I mean, it's about the capacity of the role because I mean.
Where in scripture does it say you have to use a title? I didn't ask that to Tim Cohen last week, but
that's what you.
Going back to this again. That's
what you said was so weak about Tim's thing is that now that he's the king, Charles, right? He's not Prince Charles, right? It falls apart. So I mean, I think your evidence about people worshiping Trump, I think that's very interesting. It's saddening and it's compelling that so much of that is happening. But I think all of this is incredible evidence for something, but I don't know that it necessarily proves that he's the Antichrist. Right.
But I said, I don't even use the term the Antichrist, but I do believe that he has a lot of the characteristics of the little.
Well, I would agree with that. But again, to say that there's a lot of similarities. Okay. I'm not a fan of Donald Trump, but that doesn't prove that he's going to be the beast, the little horn, the man of sin, the son of perdition.
Well, I just shared all the personality characteristics of the little horn, a mouth speaking great things and blasphemies, more stout than his fellows. He honors the god of forces in his estate.
But we could say a lot of that about Adolf Hitler. I mean, if any guy was ever into himself, it was Adolf Hitler.
Well, yeah, he was definitely it was definitely an Antichrist.
He was a type for sure,
Yeah, but I want to share this because in 2020, this was so important because on December 21st, 2020, the same day that Trump rolled out the poison, was December 21st, the winter solstice. Well, all the news media outlets were saying, oh, it's the Star of Bethlehem, because there was a conjunction between two planets, Jupiter and Saturn. Well, that's not the Star of Bethlehem, because I did an extensive amount of research 20 years ago on the birth of Messiah with Dr. Ernest L. Martin's book, and he uses the astronomical record and he wrote a book called The Star That Astonished the World. And the conjunction, the night that our Messiah was born, was the conjunction of Venus and Jupiter, not Saturn and Jupiter. Now here's the was Betula the virgin. She was giving birth to the lion. Inside the lion was Jupiter, which ancient Hebrews called it Hazadik, which means, Hazadik. And then Venus was called Hamalek, which means the king. So in other words, the virgin was giving birth to the lion, who's the king of righteousness. And this aligns with Revelation 12. But so all the news media people were saying, oh, it's the Star of Bethlehem. Well, no, it wasn't. But I find it interesting that the Sagittarius, which the cycle ended on December 21st, and notice he's the white horse, a man riding the white horse. I mean, he's half horse, half man, but he's got the poisonous bow and arrow, right? So this was the same date that Trump rolled it out, December 21st. And not only that, on that date, he was voted the most admired man in the Gallup poll. Now, it says all the world wondered after the beast. Well, that word wondered in the Greek, thaumazo, it means to be admired. I was just like, wow. But guess what? The last day of Capricorn, which was there was a conjunction between on this date of Jupiter and Saturn. Trump's last day in office was January 19th, the last day of this Capricorn. The Capricorn is the goat, the he-goat. Remember, I talked about the he-goat that, struck the ram, but also the goat, the two-horned beast in Revelation 13:11 is America. America's the two-horned beast with the two-party system. So
wasn't there something significant about January 6th other than that's when our Greek Orthodox brothers decide that's when they celebrate their Christ Mass? I won't even say the term.
So here it is. Anymore. Okay, here's the significance. Okay, there's three power structures. They all have the dome of ISIS. There's the one at St. Peter's, then there's the one in London, and there's the Capitol Dome. Right? In all three of these places, they believe that this is the dome, the womb of ISIS, and directly across from it is the phallic symbol of Nimrod, like the Washington Monument. So it's the principles of Freemasonry. Now get this, the name Mar-a-Lago means from sea to lake. Now, Revelation 13:1 says the beast rises up out of the sea. Right after Trump supposedly lost the election, he went to Mar-a-Lago. But guess what? I decided to look up the word lake in Merriam-Webster dictionary. It says to cause blood to undergo a physiological change in which the hemoglobin becomes dissolved in the plasma. I was like, whoa, that's weird, right? But let me share with you why I think this whole January 6th, what was our Messiah accused of? Insurrection, right? So to make Trump look like a type of Messiah, he allowed himself to be accused of insurrection. It didn't happen in a vacuum. He knew exactly what he was doing. Okay. So January 6th in the Catholic Church is the Feast of the Epiphany. Okay. And what does that mean? The word Epiphany is God manifest. Trump planned the march on the Capitol on January the 6th, the Feast of the Epiphany. Okay. The Catholic Church, they teach that the wise men went to visit the babe, the magi. Magi comes from the root word for magic, magi. In fact, in the 5th degree of Satanism, when you get up to the 5th degree, you're called maga. In Greek, it's magus, like Simon Magus, Simon the sorcerer. So Epiphany means God manifest, and it has a numerical value of 666. When did Trump plan the insurrection on January the 6th, the Feast of the Epiphany? See, that's when the Magi, the magicians, came to visit the babe in Bethlehem. And so this was all a high degree, high level sex magic ritual. Trump knew what he was doing. And it was all on purpose to make him look like the Messiah, the poor, persecuted martyr. Oh, it's just so terrible how they're treating this poor man, So, yeah, there's so much more I could get into. So much more. I know we're out of time, but, they call Trump the Hydra. And, Carrie Madej, I guess she found this creature in the what do you call it? Yeah, in the sauce, the snake bite that's supposed to replicate itself. Yeah, it's supposed to replicate itself, like it has the same properties as a hydra. You can put it in a blender and it will grow back,
Maria, I'm giggling because Doug's got on the disclaimer. We do not believe the virus, the Nadavi is the mark. And we've went back and forth on Facebook messages, on the phone. I think when I hosted you, that is just something. I'm not dogmatic on much, but the current Nadavi, in its current state. In its current state, I do believe it's the first seal, though. By the way, but I don't believe that I don't believe that the actual, true, by golly, no doubt mark of the beast will be unveiled and unleashed until the beast. And that's a question I did want to ask you before we go. Until the beast is actually let out of the abyss, and so Tim dodged these questions. And I'll say dodged because that's what he did.
Yep.
In Revelation twice, it talks about the beast that will come out of the abyss, will kill the two witnesses. And then it later talks about, the same beast in the abyss. And the Trumpster, just like Chucky, they have a lot more power than me, you, and Doug. But right now, they're human beings. They're mortals. They're not in this special place in hell that scripture refers to as the abyss.
What I want to say about that is in Daniel chapter 10, Daniel talks about the fact that for every ground prince, every empire, there's a ruling prince over like that empire. But for every ground prince, there's a ruling principality in the heavenlies that is presiding over that earthly that earthly
or in this instance in the abyss,
right?
As opposed to the heavenlies.
So
because he's under. You would agree that the beast is currently under like lock and key. He's not. We're not. You're not saying that we're in the Great Tribulation. I know you're.
No, we're not in the Great Tribulation yet. No, and I don't believe in a 7-year peace treaty. Like people extrapolate that from Daniel 9:27. I don't believe Daniel 9:27 is talking about a 7-year peace treaty. I do believe we're in the last 7 years, the last Shemitah leading up to the final Jubilee. That's based on Josephus, saying the 23 BC was the 79th Jubilee. You add 50 years, it takes us to the year Messiah began his ministry when he preached the acceptable year. I believe that was a Jubilee year. That was 27 AD. You add 40 more Jubilees to that. That's 2,000 years. It takes us to 2027, 2028, somewhere in that year. I believe it could be, I believe it's possible that he could return some, in that time frame. I'm not prophesying. I'm just saying, if the data that Josephus gave us, that would be the 120th Jubilee. So I do believe we're in the last 7 years, the last Shemitah. That doesn't mean I believe the whole 7 years is a tribulation. I believe the first half of the 7 years is probably like the beginning of sorrows, right? The birth pains, right? Then when we see the abomination, we have to see the abomination of desolation. We have to see it in the temple. And, the physical temple in Jerusalem, that's when the great tribulation begins. So, yeah, I don't believe we're in the tribulation.
That it's beginning to be a pet peeve. In Matthew 24, the word naos is not used. The word therios is not used. It actually says it's the Greek word topos, which never, ever, ever is interpreted and never, ever, ever means like a building. It's a location, like the Temple Mount. Now, if Yeshua had said the naos or the therios, but he didn't. He specifically said the hagios, the holy topos. Hence why I push back hard now, especially on this show. Anytime somebody says temple, there's been in chat, it does not say stand in the holy temple. Now, yes, Paul does use naos in 2 Thessalonians 2.
Yes.
But as far as Yeshua, he says, when you see the abomination of desolation spoken
I
of
didn't
by
say
Daniel
stand
the
in the
prophet.
temple. I said stand in the holy place.
You actually said temple. That's why I started doing this.
Oh, okay. I see.
You're forgiven.
Here's my graphic I did on it, right?
All right, go for
When
it.
I look up the word naos, it says the temple at Jerusalem, but only the sanctuary itself, consisting of the holy place and the Holy of Holies. So there's a total of 3 sections to the temple. You got the Ulam, the Hekel, the Holy of Holies, which is also called Beit HaMikdash. But I believe this naos is only going to have these 2 sections with the outer court not included, because the angel was told to measure and to leave the outer court out, because it's given unto the Gentiles and they shall trample it underfoot for 42 months. So, there's a total of 3 chambers. I believe the naos will be 2 out of 3 of these chambers, excluding the outer court. That's me. That's what I see. So,
and again, on that issue, as far as Yeshua talking in Matthew 24 and 13, the word naos, he does not use it. I believe, and I know for a fact, when we're just looking at Matthew 24, there does not need to be a rebuilt temple. There does not need to be even a tabernacle like a tent. It is the location that was holy even before Solomon built the temple. It was the location that was holy when that's where Abraham took Isaac to do the sacrifice. It is the location that is holy. Now, I think you can at least make an argument from 2 Thessalonians 2 that Paul does use the term naos, and you can make, I think, a better argument that naos that he is speaking of in 2 Thessalonians 2 is the 3 of us and every other person that is a believer. But I would not push back hard against anybody that says a temple is going to be rebuilt, because it very well could be rebuilt. And he very well could, like you said, Maria, stand in that holy location, the location being the temple in its in its holy place, but it's the location that matters, the topos, the topography, not the brick and mortar building.
Well, but even Daniel says that he's going to take away the daily sacrifices, and he's going to set up, the abomination that causes desolation, which is the image of the beast, right?
In the temple. Or some temple-like structure. I think that's the point. Let me get to a couple questions here. This is from Montana. So saying, if he is the Antichrist, where are the 2 witnesses?
Oh, so that's a great question. My take on the 2 witnesses, and I've got a really teaching on that. I just shared it with somebody this morning. The 2 witnesses, I don't believe, are 2 individuals, because when you look at what?
Amen.
Oh, okay. I thought you were.
I'm a both and.
Okay, so, and I'll just. This is. Let me see this. 2 witnesses. Okay. 2 witnesses. I got a teaching on who are the 2 witnesses. It's a very short one compared to most of my blogs. This is So you got to go back to the law of first mention. The first time the olive trees mentioned is in Jeremiah 11:16. He calls Israel a green olive tree, right? Then you go to Zechariah chapter 4, and Zechariah sees a candlestick of gold with a bowl on top of it with the 7 lamps thereon and the 7 pipes and 2 olive trees by it. And then the Malach, which I believe is Messiah, Yahushua, the messenger, says, "What are these, my master?" Or no, he says to the messenger, "What are these?" Right? And he says, now in the King James version, it says the 2 anointed ones. But when you read it in Hebrew, it actually says the 2 anointed sons, Bain Yitzar, And guess what? What did Yahuwah call the nation of Israel? He says, Israel is my son, right? In Jeremiah 31:9, he calls him my firstborn son. So if it's 2 anointed sons and Yahuwah called the whole nation his son, right?
I've done a teaching on that as well. And if
Yeah.
you look at the word Yitzhar, it also is related to the word light. You have the
Mhm.
word Zohar in there. And there were 2 guys that showed up on the Mount of Transfiguration with Jesus, and they were glowing, which is
Yep.
kind of interesting. So,
No, I'm not saying there won't be 2
yeah.
individuals representing the 2 witnesses, but I mean,
Okay.
face it, he mentions 2 groups. Now, here's why
And I'm not opposed to that. So, okay, we don't want to do the whole show on that. So,
Yeah, I
but
understand.
anyway,
I'm just trying to answer the question.
No, I understand. Here's another question. What is the evidence that Nazi Germany is the leopard?
Just reading reading historical accounts of different theologians and over the years, and I've studied it, and it made sense to me because I'm trying to find the blog where I talk about
Don't
that.
worry
I do
about the
have
blog, just talk.
basically, when you look at the whole 8 empires, you got Egypt, Assyria, Babylon, Medo, Persia, Greece, Rome, Great Britain, and America.
And Rome morphed into the Holy Roman Empire, which was run by the Germans.
But when you look at Revelation 13, you can tell it's the same animals that Daniel mentions, but instead of them being individual beasts, they have parts of, in other words, the beast that he saw was like a leopard. His feet were like the feet of a bear, and his mouth was like the mouth of a lion. So it was sort of like an amalgam. The beast had, characteristics that were like Greece, like Persia was the bear, right? Like Babylon. So this beast, when you read Revelation 13:1, I used to think this was talking about the Holy Roman Empire as per under the Caesars, but now I look at this and go, okay,
the
this
Kaiser. That's what the Kaiser was.
Yes, it was Nazi Germany. I mean, Nazi Germany conquered 10 European nations.
And we can take the word Kaiser and Tsar are exactly the same word. So
yes, they are.
I mean, we've got to be careful just to say, well, because it's the word Caesar.
Well, look at this though, and to Tim's point last week, Chucky's got a lot more German in him than he does British blood. I mean, you start looking into these royal families, and again, you can all trace it back to the Holy Roman Empire, and it was always for centuries the Germans that were the emperors of the Holy Roman Empire, and so. Just because the political structure has changed recently, I think the historicist, and again, I'm a historicist, preterist, futurist, and polemicist. The historicists are correct in what they teach. I just think they miss the futurism part of it.
Exactly.
I think they miss the preterism part of it. I think we're talking right now some polemicism, if you will. Look at history as far as what these nation states, these kingdoms, and again, we know, I think we all can 100% agree that Rome morphed into what it currently is, which would be, I believe, we're in the feet toe stage of iron, and Rome never went away. I mean, Maria just proved it by showing what goes on in the Vatican, Rome, and America. And everybody we got taught American history, and we didn't realize just it goes all the way back to Babylon.
Exactly.
Right.
I mean, it really does.
In fact, what's interesting about the first seal is that Sagittarius that you showed, that actually comes from that's a symbol of Ninurta, who was the god of death, and it's the same image or being that's going to come out of the abyss in Revelation chapter 9, and that traces back to Nimrod, which is pretty crazy. So exactly, back to the hunter. Orion actually goes back to that as well. That was actually Nimrod's or Ninurta's star.
Trump built 10 towers all over the world. This one is in Uruguay. Doesn't it remind you of the Tower of Babel?
Well, I don't know, because I've never actually seen the Tower of Babel.
Well, I mean, I should say artists like a ziggurat.
Yeah, but those are all just pure fiction. Nobody knows.
You're
exactly
right.
what
They are. Like. But what you would think, the Tower of Babel looked like. But still, Trump resembles Nimrod in so many ways, because I looked up the word hunter, and in Hebrew, and it means the game, which is the Latin root for gamble, as in gambling casinos. So it's like Trump
it's the word Said. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, Trump is a builder of towers, just like Nimrod. And, I'm going to go out on a limb. Some people are probably going to criticize. I happen to think the Merovingians, the ones that say that, they're descended from Jesus and Mary Magdalene, these royal families, they engage in all these satanic rituals and stuff. I wouldn't be surprised if he's got Nephilim blood in him.
Hey, Doug, I'm interested because I agree with Maria, and I believe she's correct on the two sons. As far as a guest had asked this about, but you got to do it quickly, Maria. It's the two houses. It's Judah and it's Ephraim. Judah got the kingly blessing. Ephraim got the firstborn blessing. And if you're listening to this in the future and you've never heard of that, we're all Israelites. Okay? I mean, that's been what's hidden, and why, when it says the two olive trees, it can't be just talking about two dudes.
It's two olive trees and two candlesticks, 4 objects. If it's 4 objects, how can it be 2 individuals? You see, who are the two candlesticks? In Revelation 1:20, he tells us, Yahushua said that their 7 golden candlesticks are the 7 assemblies, but out of those 7, only 2 of them he didn't rebuke, Smyrna and Philadelphia. So what you have is you have the 2 houses, and then you got the 2 overcoming assemblies, which are probably like, Gentile Christian churches that get grafted in, and they adopt, the ways of the Torah. Now, there could be 2 individuals that will be like in charge of the 2 witnesses, but I do believe the 2 witnesses are the 2 houses of Israel and the 2 overcoming assemblies. Now, here's the real interesting part. Did you know the names of Smyrna and Philadelphia correlate to Leah's handmaidens? When you look at Leah and Rachel, and then each of them had 2 handmaidens, that's 4 women, right? So Smyrna means strengthened for myrrh, because they have to suffer tribulation for 10 days. During the 10 days of all, I believe Smyrna represents the foolish virgins. They didn't go into the wedding, but what did the wise virgins say to the foolish virgins? Go buy the oil. I used to think the foolish virgins got lost forever. No, during the 10 days of all, they're going to go buy the oil of his name. And when he comes back, they're going to be waiting for him at the Mount of Olives, and they're going to look upon him whom they have pierced. So Smyrna means strengthened for myrrh, but guess what Zilpah means? Means that's Leah's maid, dripping with myrrh. She's got the oil. Get it? And then you got Rachel's name Rachel's handmaiden, is Bila, and it means tribulation. So you've got Philadelphia has the open door that no man can shut. They go on the Feast of Trumpets. Those are the wise virgins. They've got the oil of his name, because he says, you've not denied my name. What does it say in Song of Solomon 1:3? Your name is like oil poured forth. Therefore do the virgins love you. So the oil is the oil of his name. There's an anointing on his name. So the ones that go first into the marriage are the wise virgins. They represent Leah. Leah got married first. They represent Philadelphia. And they represent the wise virgins. And then 10 days later, the second bride, half the bride, meets him at the Mount of Olives. They represent Rachel. They represent Judah, the kingdom of Judah. Not all the kingdom of Judah. There'll be plenty of born again Judahs that go with Leah, the Philadelphia group. But the ones that didn't accept him, and prior to the harpazo, they will be standing at the Mount of Olives waiting there for him. And during those last 10 days of the tribulation, they will go by the oil of his name. So even the names of Leah's handmaidens match the two overcoming assemblies.
Wow. Well, this has been very interesting, Maria. No, it really has. I'm absolutely sincere on that. I think you did a fantastic job of presenting your case. I'm definitely convinced that people have gone way overboard on their worship and idolization of Donald Trump. Whether he's the Antichrist or an Antichrist, that he is an Antichrist, that he's opposed to the real true worship of Christ, I can accept that. Whether he's the little horn, for me, the verdict is still out on that one. The jury is still out. So, we'll have to wait and see. But it's very, very interesting. And I thought you did a great job. You brought a lot of good evidence. I mean, you've really researched this, and I appreciate that. And some people in the chat really noticed. Some didn't. Some were more antagonistic, but that's always how these things go. But
get used to it.
Exactly. and as far as the two witnesses, I would kind of say the same thing, just in the reverse. I would say that they're going to be two individuals who represent the two houses, right? You're kind of saying it the opposite direction, that they're witnesses and these individuals represent the witnesses. I'm fine with that. I mean, I think it's a half empty, half full kind of perspective, and I don't know if it makes a difference.
Right. Well, in Ezekiel, it's the two, when he talks about those two sticks, the word there is tree.
Trees.
Yeah, it's trees.
Yeah.
And it's an exceeding great army, because he breathes into these dead bones, and he says it's the whole house of Israel. And then right after this great army, he takes the stick of Judah and the stick of Ephraim, and he puts them together. They're two trees. I mean,
there's a lot of cool stuff. Scripture
you're choir preaching right now.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we never get to the end of this stuff, which is so exciting. And there's always something new to see. Well, so thank you. Tell people where they can get more of your stuff.
Well, okay. So I used to have a website, but they took it down in 2017 because of, I sent out a newsletter warning about Bill Gates and his Depop. And so now all I have is the Blogger account. So all you got to do is type in doubleportioninheritance.com. And when you do that, it'll take you straight to my Blogger account. I just linked the URL, doubleportioninheritance.com. You can even do mariamarola.com. And I think that will also take you to the Blogger. Yeah.
All right. Cool.
Yeah. So if you type in mariamarola.com, it's, I know Wold is my married name. I usually go by Maria Marola Wold because people still remember me as Maria Marola when I used to be on Hebrew Nation Radio for years. But so just mariamarola.com or doubleportioninheritance.com. And then we got a YouTube channel, which I can't remember what I think it's I think you just type in, it's just Maria Marola. Yeah, just type in Maria Marola, get a YouTube channel. We also are on Rumble, and it's DPI. Yeah, DPI Ministries. So yeah, you can find our content there.
Very good.
What is it? Lioness for you. Yeah, Lioness for Yah is what it is. My handle on Rumble is Lioness, the number 4, and Yah, YAH.
Awesome. Well, thank you. That was really interesting. Again, the jury is still out, in my opinion. as to whether Mr. Trump will be the Antichrist. But I think Maria did a fantastic job of presenting her case, and you guys can judge for yourselves. But of course, the thing we all agree on is that Jesus is the great king, and he's the one that we really need to put our
Yes.
focus on. We want to be very, very careful when we start putting, trust and stock in an individual. And I think, there's a point that was well made that, the Germans back in Nazi Germany, they put their trust in Adolf Hitler. He became God's man. He was essentially the Messiah. He was God's gift to the German people. And we see how that turned out. And, could that happen here in America? It could, right? I hope it doesn't, but it could. And if we're not careful, and if Christians continue to embrace this Christian nationalism, and Trump is the head of this thing, we could be in very big trouble. So we want to be very, very careful. Let's put Jesus on the throne. He's the only one who's worthy to be on the throne. He'll never fail us. He'll never deceive us. And he's absolutely righteous. So thank you again. Thank you, Scott. This was a lot of fun. Guys, until next time, thank you for joining us. By the way, if you do want to support this ministry, you can go to patreon.com/Doug Hamp, and you can give as little or as much as you want. So thank you so much. Until next, we're going to see next week. We won't have it because it's that special week. But so we're not going to have it next week. But because I'll be out actually skiing. So anyway, that's the truth. All right. Take care, guys. Until next time. God bless.